Okay, so the next three chapters, first of all, hi everybody. Welcome to chapter 4. The next three chapters focus on the branches of government, the three branches, which of course include the legislative, executive, and the judicial branches. And it's interesting because this is, again, as we formed the Constitution, we also had to put checks and balances into the Constitution to make sure that not one branch could usurp power, so you would not have either a tyrannical situation or have a dictator or anything of that sort. The purpose was to make sure that no one had ultimate power, that the power was shared across all three branches. And it had worked pretty well for a long time until more recently, where we have seen the executive branch under the power of the president be expanded over the last 20, 30 years. And that's been a little bit of a problem in many ways. But we'll talk about that more a little bit later. In this chapter, chapter 4, we're going to look at the legislative branch. And the legislative branch, which focuses on the houses of Congress. There's two houses in what we call a bicameral legislature, which has to do with one is the Senate and one is the House of Representatives. One is focused on, it's based on the Senate, for example. There are two senators for every state to try and have equality across all states at that level. And then on the other branch, the House of Representatives, is based on population. So, for example, California has a huge population, so we have like a tremendous amount of House of Representatives, or we call representatives, and a state like South Dakota, which has like 5 people in it, only have like one or two. So it's all based on the number of people in your state, and also which also drives the number of districts that your state has that actually represent you in the House of Congress. um, but also, and this is also breaks down sort of the structural role and responsibilities of Congress. Its legislative duties, it's what it's supposed to do, the roles, the checks and balances, uh, how they go about making laws. Congress is the lawmaking body. Yes, they have to be signed off by the president, but Congress is the one who initiates the lawmaking policies. Uh, is there a lot of issues with it? Absolutely. Particularly in the world we live in today. Congress ratings are at an all-time low. In fact, if you're grading it, it'd get an F minus. And that's because of all what we call the partisanship in Congress, meaning that the the Democrats or the liberals are on one side of the political aisle, and the Republicans slash conservatives are on the other side. And basically, what happens is nothing gets through the political system that benefits the people in terms of laws and policies, because both sides will dig their feet in and won't vote for policies that the other side is supporting. It's like having two 5-year-old kids arguing over a baseball or something. It's an unfortunate part of the reality of what we live with, but it happens as a result of people not doing things for the people. They're doing it for their own self-interest. Um, and that's a problem. And it partially is our problem because we're the ones who elect these people who represent us. Remember, they represent our interest. And so if we're not doing our job, then don't expect them to do their job. And remember, this is also a money game for them as well, because in order to run for Congress, you need millions of dollars to run for office. And in that means they have to get money from somewhere. And usually it comes from corporate or private donors who have a vested interest in saying, okay, I'll give you money to run for office if you hook me up or do a favor for me. This is where the problem comes in. And this is why we have a problem with regard to our congressional representatives. Not all of them. There's some very good people there, but there those there who have been drinking the dirty bathwater and done many things that have actually harmed rather than helped the system. Uh, there's a lot of controversy in this area. I wish I had more time to tell you about it in detail. If we were in a lecture, certainly you would be learning a lot more about it. But even now, as we confront the impeachment of the president and those who are lined up on partisan lines, it's difficult to look at. And I'm never one, and I will always tell you, I will never tell you to pick a political side. That's for you to decide. But whether you line up on the conservative or liberal side, the evidence is compelling, and you have to decide whether like it or not, whether or not you want to be able to, the kind of person you want to have reside in the office. We'll talk about the presidency in the next chapter, but in any event, Congress's role is to decide whether they're going to impeach and the process of what that's going to mean, and also the decision about removal from office if they decide to. Remember, impeachment doesn't mean removal. Impeachment is more like a reprimand, a slap on the hand. It can be a hard slap or it can be a soft slap. But again, it's only the third time in our history that we have impeached the president. So, and two of them, the last two, Clinton and with Trump. We'll see what happens, but I don't. We'll just see what happens. Let me not say what happens, but we'll just see. Um, Anyhow, so we will see where that goes, but also you'll learn about the election process. And the videos in this chapter show you some of the corruption in Congress and where they get their money from and how they take their money. So I think you'll find it to be interesting and enlightening. Okay, see you in the next chapter.